Oh, hello there. I'm Jimmy Shuker, alongside Albert Chalmers and Sean Goodman, and this is Radiant Light, a spiritual discussion podcast, episode 18. On today's episode, Albert will be welcoming a new guest onto the show, Conor Sullivan, to discuss the martial art of Muay Thai. Muay Thai, also known as the art of 8 limbs, is Thailand's national sport, which uses stand-up striking along with various clinching techniques and is characterized by the use of fists, elbows, knees and shins. Conor has fought Muay Thai in Thailand and today will be offering us the benefits of his experience. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as whichever platform you listen to your podcasts on. And you can even follow us on Instagram too. Radiant_light_podcast. And you can always reach out to us at radiantlightpodcast1, that's the number 1, at gmail.com. And with that being said, let's hand you guys over to our martial arts correspondent, Albert Chalmers, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Enjoy the episode.
What's up, bro? Good to see you.
So Muay Thai is just one of the martial arts I've delved into a little bit. I didn't start young or anything. I've always been interested in martial arts, starting with, Power Rangers when you were a kid.
Yeah.
It's originally Japanese. There's some karate and martial art influence in that. And then on to, I was watching a lot of kung fu movies, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. In my teens, being into that and having a punching bag, messing around. Nothing too serious. I never took it as something I would really reach into, I guess. I took some karate when I was a kid as well. Not a great experience.
It's like a trend I'm noticing most people have tried karate as their first martial art back in the day.
Well, it became really popular in the West with the kung fu movies and whatnot, and karate was something easily adaptable, I guess, to the West. And a lot of karate schools popped open, I guess, in the 60s, 70s, roughly. So Canada and America, that's going to be one of the main ones a lot of people tried when they were young.
Did you enjoy the karate when you were young? Do you remember?
No, it was a bad experience just because of the place itself and the instructor.
Right.
Specifically. So that's why a lot of people say the people at the gym, the instructor, the people themselves and how they're running the gym and their qualities as human beings, that's one of the most important things.
Definitely.
If you're going to pick a gym or pick a martial art to train. So nothing too serious. It wasn't until, we met too in high school, and then we had some boxing gloves, messed around, a bit of sparring. Yeah. So that was fun, but still I never took anything too seriously. It wasn't until a certain point in my life, after spending a lot of time with media and, art, music, all different types of things, there was a point in my life where everything was kind of collapsing around, relationship things, all kinds of stuff, where I was just hitting a rock bottom, I guess. And some things made me come to realize I really wanted to start training fighting. One of the first things I did was start watching all of Mike Tyson's fights. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, that's just what I was drawn to.
His energy and his...
I don't know what it was, really. It was just, I suppose...
He's like a dominant figure, or...
The controlled aggression, intensity, and just fighting in general, being able to punch. These are things I always liked. But whatever called me at that point in my life, it called me toward that fighting energy. So I wanted to get more into that. I think I look at it now and I know why. Because at that point in my life, I needed some kind of... I needed to tap into that energy in a healthy way. I grew up, and the example my dad set, there was a lot of anger and rage and verbal fighting, not incredibly physical, but some things. So
a bit abusive, kind of.
Yeah, so I'd been witness to that, and fighting and whatnot just hadn't seemed like, I was more of a peaceful person, I suppose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because when I met you, you seemed like a really quiet, kind of reserved dude. But like, once I got to know you, I noticed you had like an intense side too. That maybe it's like coming from the childhood things, or
Yeah, whatever it may be, there's some kind of aggression I had inside of me. And yeah, I guess at a point in my life, I needed to express that somehow. I needed to channel that energy out in a healthy way. And, you know, I look at it now, and that's what drew me to it, is that need, that almost a subconscious need at the time, to be able to release that aggression. What I see now as a natural primal instinct I had. I think a lot of people have that in us. Fighting is a part of life. It's a part of nature.
yeah,
You know, baby tigers, whatever animal, they'll be play fighting all the time, and that's toward their survival. It's necessary. So
yeah. But in humans, they kind of maybe see it as a negative, even though it's totally essential. And if you ignore it, the older you get, the more powerful it come out in other ways, not healthy ways, perhaps even.
yeah, it depends how a society is built up, and if that's encouraged as a part of growing up, is to express that nature, that fighting nature, then I think that's really healthy.
Yeah,
I can't judge the world or any specific place on that point. I just know I personally didn't have that outlet in my own space. So
Right.
that's what personally drew me to start pursuing not just, martial arts as an aesthetic, as an art, but going into train to fight and sparring, the whole deal, just wanting to release that energy. It started with just wanting to hit a bag and realizing, hey, this is a great way to take aggression out.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
And even it was kind of just playful at that time as well.
sort of. Like I said, there was things going on in my life, and I had a lot of anger towards certain people. And that's really what it was, an anger toward a certain person, relationship issues. A lot of people go through it.
It's part of life, right? So
Sure, just relationships and whatnot,
it's like,
but
which way do you?
actually anger toward a person for things they've done to someone you care about.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? And at the place I was in my life, there's nothing I could really do about the situation. All I could do was deal with myself and work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to look, well, how do I use this energy? How do I get this energy out? Hit a bag. Great. Energy is gone in a healthy way. Feel, get some exercise, feel the endorphins, feel good. And that's how that started. That's it. That's why I needed it. But going into it, I always had a respect for martial arts, Asian culture, and the history of martial arts there. Whether it be
Right.
China, Kung Fu, karate, still respect. Taekwondo, love Taekwondo. Was always into physical things when I was young too, so all those things were still there in the back of my head. So going into that and seeing it as an outlet for aggression, I had that, but at the same time fell in love with it and enjoying physical things where it's about honing a technique. Not even just that, but music and art, seeing that relation and how I could build technique and skill and what I could gain from that. That's what kept me pushing on with that. There was a self-confidence I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Questions about, who I am and where I stand, and where I stand with other people and where I should be in life. And that was providing some answers to that, I suppose.
So it ticked a lot of boxes overall to complete your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say I was always interested in fighting and that expression since I was a kid. But again, like the home situation, my mom she wouldn't encourage that, really
Right.
approve it. She didn't want to see me
She
fighting
thinks
and
violence
whatnot.
is a bad thing, right? It's
Yeah.
hard for people to understand sometimes that fighting and violence don't necessarily always have the same underlying motivations, I guess.
Yeah, it's like it's saying that anger and hatred are two very similar things, but very different.
Yeah, I remember, like you said about the Power Rangers, my cousins used to come over to the city. They lived up in Collingwood, and they'd come to Mississauga, and we'd be like in the basement watching the Power Rangers movie with the ninja craziness. And my aunt was like saying, no, this is violent, this is bad, this is this. And I was like, I was so confused. I didn't understand why she thought that way, but now I'm older, I kind of understand. If you don't really get it, you're not really seeing it the way you see it from a different perspective.
Well, yeah, especially since like the Power Rangers themselves are fighting evil.
Yeah.
And they're doing good things for the world, and it's not that they're starting a fight, they're defending a world against something that's causing tyranny, right? So it's kind of an immature perspective, or a fearful perspective, to look at that and instantly think that's bad because there's fighting.
Yeah.
And it is a part of nature. Violence is a part of nature. You know, natural disasters are violent. Animals are violent. It's just inescapable.
You were saying that in the last episode. It's like, go ask a wave or a tsunami if they're good or bad. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad. It's just balance, right?
Yeah.
The earth is a thing about balance, and sometimes if there's no violence, then there's huge outbursts on the other end of the world or something. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know exactly how it all connects. But I think that as a society, if there's a healthy society of physical and using the violence in a beautiful way, an artistic way, that can really create a different type of society where these violent issues and outbursts aren't happening because they're using it in an artistic way or a sportive way.
Well, I mean, it all comes down to the individual and their psyche and whatever they're dealing with,
Right.
and what their motivations are in life.
Yeah.
I mean,
no two fighters have the exact same motivation. Perhaps.
Nobody does, right? And, you know, I see an ideal world as not needing fighting at all. Like, it not needing martial arts. I don't think it is, like, a positive solution necessarily to everything. People shouldn't be fighting. Things should be able to be resolved, you know, first before it manifests physically.
Right.
So I don't see it as something I need to defend against someone who says it's wrong, this and that, whatever. I just know personally for my life, just training alone and tapping into that energy is incredibly beneficial for the individual, and having it in a organized way where fights are sanctioned and everything's controlled and agreed upon, and it's not based on anger and hatred. That's the thing, is when you start to train to fight and actually test those skills and focus on that, you start to realize that emotions will hinder you and put you in a dangerous situation. And that's the thing I take from training, is that I don't feel like a tough guy or like more confident just because of the skills or whatever. It's understanding where I stand and what the real implications of fighting are, and if it's really worth it or not. And it's never really worth it. Right. So if anything, training to fight has drawn me away from being someone who will find conflict that easily.
How long were you training before you decided, I'm going to have a fight? And when was your first fight? Like, what was the timeline roughly? Because you said you started kickboxing as a teenager after...
Not as a teenager. I started...
Older.
I started back, like, after college.
It was that late? Okay. So it was, like, in your 20s or so.
Yeah, like 23, 24.
Yeah, okay. When I came back to Guelph, we met up and we started sparring and meeting
playing
up
around
with
with the
those guys.
boxing gloves, and it was after that I got serious about it.
So what was that time frame approximately, would you say, between that moment and like the fight?
Oh, having a fight?
Yeah.
I was just training at a gym, just kickboxing, just because I loved it, and that was good enough. And then the coach at the gym told me, after a year of training, he told me I was going to fight.
Okay.
And I said, no, I'm not going to fight. I'm not ready. There's so many things I haven't learned, aspects of the whole deal, and no. And he said, yes, you are fighting.
Cool.
You are a fight. You're going to fight.
That's cool.
I said, whatever. Okay, I'll do it. That's fine.
Better embrace it. If it's going to happen, it's going to... Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess a year is relatively a short time, but he must have seen that potential that you could...
Well, yeah, it felt good. And someone's asking you to do something, they believe in you, and you feel like, okay, well, even just for them, I'll give it a shot. Yeah.
So did you notice that it made you step up your training?
The whole time you're training toward a fight, even if you don't ever end up in a competition, the point and aim and structure of training is to prepare you for a fight.
Right. So you should always have that in your mind, even if you're not fighting. if you're training
Well,
martial
it's regardless of what you think, that's how it's set up, and that's the way it should be if it's done properly.
Right.
Unless you're going into just some fitness thing just for the sake
Yeah.
of that, even still, you should be taught proper technique that applies. So after training that long doing that, being thrown in the actual event of the fight and feeling that adrenaline and being there and actually having your skills tested, you can think about how you're going to perform technique. You can think about it and ponder it and research. But until you're actually in that situation, the real situation when you're face to face with someone, what you've been working toward, you're actually seeing the real results of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment when your when your awareness is incredibly high and your adrenaline's going, and you're in that situation of that energy, your body just naturally takes in the corrections you have to make at a greater level. It's more obvious to see what works and what doesn't work. If you get kicked in the head and knocked out, it's gonna affect your training after that. You're gonna think a lot more about how to put your hand up to block a kick to your head, etc., etc. So yeah, after that first fight, it was just chaos. I don't really remember much of it at all. There's a couple little moments, but it was that natural balls to the wall. It was just like chaos, right? I remember a few little things, and the other guy, I think it was his first fight or second. So it's just getting that energy out, swinging, trying to stay within form, using all your energy, surviving. A lot of it is fear, not knowing how the other guy's going to react to what you do, if he's going to catch you with something.
Right.
So it was a lot of chaos.
It's almost better to get the first fight out of the way quickly so that you can... Not too quickly, obviously. Like you said, you have to be prepared. But
well, you should have a proper coach who has the eyes for it.
yeah, they know.
And they'll know best.
Right.
A lot of the training is trusting in your coach, whoever's guiding you. Especially when it comes to going into a sanctioned fight, something they should probably have a lot more experience in, putting fighters in, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could have been better prepared for my first fight.
We could
but
always
I did
be
it.
better prepared.
Well, the thing is, I personally didn't feel like I was ready. I was more so doing it for the gym.
Oh, okay.
Because I was asked to do it.
So it's like you're in a team, and when one person's suggesting something and the coach himself says it, it's almost like a selfless act in that I'm representing this club and we're together. And
yeah, I mean, I didn't delve that too deep into it because I don't think that gym particularly delved too deep into a really good training regimen and whatnot. I have issues with that gym. Et cetera, et cetera.
He's not naming names.
So I'm not trying to use that as an example for how I
Yeah.
see people should guide themselves in martial arts.
But you still have respect for the people there, and
Oh, 100%.
so it's like, even when you have disagreements, it's good to have the respect.
Yeah.
Overall. Even within a fight towards your opponent.
You have to
right?
respect everyone in life.
That's the beauty of martial arts, is that it teach the values of, I don't know, like if I'm going to fight somebody, you want to think that they're not going to touch me and I'm just going to do my thing, but like respect that there's an element of danger, and then also respect them as an opponent.
Well, when you believe in yourself completely to win a fight, and then the other guy defeats you, you might feel ashamed, embarrassed, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's respect even in loss.
Yeah.
And being humble and being able to move forward and continue fighting. And it's not just talking about fighting in a competition. That's not like just what fighting is. Fighting is a spirit people have. It's a movement. It's an emotion. It's an approach to life. It's a necessity. That's just fighting in general. Like everybody fights things on different levels. Martial arts is a physical expression.
It's like a metaphor for life, as people would say.
Talking about just training a martial art and the difference between just training, etc., and actually fighting, it's all one and the same. I feel like if someone's looking particularly into one martial art and they're thinking, oh, I would like to compete in that, that's its own thing. And I'm not going to say I'm the one to give the best advice on that because I'm not an official coach or trainer. I can advise people and guide people and teach things. But at the same time, I'm not putting myself in that position of someone who's, you know, they're approved under all the paperwork, and they regularly go to competitions, and they regularly run a gym. I'm not that guy.
They're part of that culture and that world deeply, right?
Well, I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
I'm not the official dude who signs people up for fights.
Yeah.
So I'm not the one to speak on that. But if you're just talking about fighting in life, then that's something I understand.
Do you think that a coach should have fight experience, or do you think that anyone could be able to coach as long as they have the right understanding of the techniques?
Well, the ultimate goal is to fight. And if you want to teach something, you need to know it. And fighting is an action.
Yeah.
It can be an action. If we're talking martial arts, it's an action. It's an actual movement. So you need to know it. And to know it, you have to do it.
There's no real, like, intellectual loophole here. It's experience or nothing, right?
No, unless you're just studying the intellectual aspect of it.
Right. Okay.
So definitely a coach needs fight experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can only teach what you know.
Yeah, you can, like, speak on it, but you can't really teach it unless you have personal experience.
You can do what you want, but I think you'll make a much better coach and have much better results if you're teaching people something you've done.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of all the different coaches you've had in even short periods of time when you were in Thailand, you trained with different gyms, and you want to talk about how you went from having a couple fights in Canada to actually travel there, and were you just going there for, like, to have a fight, or did you have a fight there, or how did that all play out?
No, like, I didn't get heavy into actually competing. I had 2 amateur kickboxing fights. I had 1 exhibition Muay Thai fight. After doing enough kickboxing, I eventually moved on to Muay Thai.
Okay.
Just
so
because
the distinction is the elbows, the knees, and the culture of it, right? The heritage.
Yeah, it's a cultural
It's a
practice.
national sport, and comes from their history. And
yeah, but largely it was... Well, it was as simple as I left that gym I was at, had disagreement, left, went on my own, continued to train on my own at various gyms that just had a heavy bag lying around. And I met a buddy, and he was training in Muay Thai specifically.
like Achieve, right? Achieve Fitness?
Yeah, Achieve Fitness, and I met Christian Navarro there, and he saw me training, and he invited me to his gym.
Mafa
in Mississauga,
yeah, Mississauga, right?
So I didn't even choose Muay Thai necessarily. I was just asked to come. And once you start learning the history and culture of Muay Thai and how much it's practiced in the country and everything about it, you start to realize, well, that's kind of a superior system to traditional kickboxing, which is a bit more free form. It's not distinctly one thing so much, and it doesn't have necessarily a solid foundation. You'll get a lot of people.
It's a more recent, modern sport, as opposed to a martial art that comes from the battlefield and tested. And
yeah, and it's not even that. It's just Muay Thai, there's fights every week in almost every city of decent size.
Right.
It's continual. It's a part of what they do day to day. It's a way for kids in Thailand to be able to afford to support their parents in poor areas. It's active. It's very active, and it's always being tested.
Yeah.
And it's not limited. Over history, Muay Thai has adopted rules and regulations from Western boxing, and Thailand has boxing champions, and they adapt and they integrate and they use what's practical. But they still maintain the original tradition.
I guess kickboxing, as a result of the karate coming into contact with Muay Thai back in the early days, when then they got exposed that the Thai style was more effective and whatnot, and they had to, like, integrate that.
The Japanese?
Yeah, because K1 comes out of those experiences with the Thai fighters down in Thailand. And
as far as I'm not too educated on that, the only thing I know is that K1 kickboxing is taking karate and adapting it to a sport scenario.
Yeah, but the Thais were able to thrive even under that rule set, even without their special weapons.
Yeah, the Thais have a good history of fighting other countries, their martial art, and it's succeeding quite often.
So what would you say was, like, the main, when you transitioned, what was the main difference?
From kickboxing to Muay Thai? With the culture, there's a lot more benefits. Like, the practicality of it and actually utilizing it for something greater than just...
But what makes it so effective? Like, is it the leg kicks, the clinching, the elbows? Like,
Well,
I'm
like,
just asking for those specific...
Well, that's kind of... that's not even what makes it different necessarily.
Okay.
It's not a specific technique or type of kick or whatever. There's a bit of that, but largely it's the fact that it's alive in the culture and it's used all the time, and it's a part of the family. It's a part of the community of people.
So you think just having it so embedded in their culture is what allows it to be effective in the first place, is because it's like a real thing. It comes from some real place, right?
Yeah.
Day-to-day life type place.
Well, if you hear some interviews with some of the golden era legends and some of the greats of Muay Thai, the number one thing they say somebody needs to succeed is heart. If you don't have a strong heart, you won't succeed. You'll give in. Even if a guy is technically superior, the guy with more heart will typically take it to the end. And so when you account for the fact that a lot of the Muay Thai practitioners were young kids growing up in poor areas, and they needed to support their family, and they're willing to step in a ring and get hurt and put themselves in danger, that shows a lot of heart. And that's not even to say that other martial arts lack that, or lack the family aspect. It's the fact that it's still alive and thriving, and it's something that does apply to that day-to-day life in Thailand quite a bit.
So, fast forward to the trip in Thailand. Did you just go to gyms that you heard about? Did you have friends there? How did you find your way into that?
My cousin was just doing a trip around Southeast Asia. She was doing Vietnam, Malaysia, everything. Okay. And she was stopping in Thailand for 3 weeks and just asked if I wanted to come.
But did she know you did Muay Thai?
I think she knew a little bit.
Okay.
She knew I was interested in it.
Right. So you're just like, let's do it.
Yeah, it seemed like an opportunity that was provided for me. It seemed right. Like it had to happen.
No-brainer.
Yeah. So there was that. And I was training Muay Thai at Mafa and around the area.
You had a fight with
for them?
Yeah, like
yeah, it was an exhibition fight.
Right, the one in Toronto.
Yeah, at the Celebration of the King at Siam number 1. It started by Ajahn Suchart, and he started the Muay Thai organization of Canada. He holds an important place.
Yeah.
He trained Simon Marcus, and Simon Marcus has done a lot in Muay Thai and been to Thailand quite a bit training, and there's connections there. Definitely.
In Glory, Simon Marcus was a champion, I believe, and he's from Toronto too.
Yeah, well, Ajahn Suchart's a great crew.
A mix of you training Muay Thai and then your cousin allowed you to go over to Thailand, and you say it's like one of the coolest, or the coolest place you've ever been. So could you tell us, why do you think Thailand's so great? Like, what is it that speaks to you more than the Muay Thai element? Put that aside for a while and just...
Like if Muay Thai didn't exist there, just about Thailand itself? The people are lovely, the food's lovely, the environment's lovely. The Buddhist culture. People seem very mindful. And aware.
Right. In that Buddhist sense, you mean like being
in
the
think
moment.
That's a part of it.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's just kind of how I felt in regard to the people. And also, with so much interest and passion and honesty I had going to Thailand, I just attracted the people that had that. I mean,
that's true.
At the end of the day, the land itself is beautiful. The tropical beaches, beautiful water, the North Mountains, everything up there is beautiful. The weather is very warm. At the base of it, I can say that. And then on top of that, yeah, the people just seem very nice and genuine, kind. I only traveled to the south and the islands, and I went straight to Chiang Mai from there, up in the north. I like going to smaller places, not tourist attractions.
Not Bangkok or some big cities.
Yeah, I like venturing into the country and getting to know the people themselves. Legit, I don't need people to speak English. I just want to catch the vibe of the place and culture at its root as much as possible. So going with that, I had, but there's a lot of respect for the culture even before I went there. So the things I see in it, Muay Thai, Um, the simplicity of living in a bamboo hut on the beach and the lifestyle that comes from that.
It's kind of idyllic simplicity. And
yeah, but in terms of judging, like assessing Thailand, I haven't been that many places. I've been around Canada, I've been to Arizona, and I've been to Thailand. When I landed in Bangkok, I went straight to Phuket. We get there and find the first beach we can jump in. I get in the ocean. The first thing I do is thank God for this experience, because it's the most beautiful experience ever. And my first feeling was this concept of heaven and hell. It's actually a physical thing. It's actually a physical place on earth. Like, heaven is on earth, and so is hell. And I'm here in this beautiful water in Thailand, and I'm feeling like this is heaven. This is like what the Bible or whoever wants to describe it. I also believe that as a metaphorical thing, whatever. But at the time, I was like, Thailand, heaven. Canada, the giant labor camp up in the frigid cold where everyone's like upset and stressed and whatnot. That's hell over there. And this is mostly Ontario, I'm saying. But just the experience I had there, it really set that apart. And there's other places I've been, and it wasn't the same as that. And this could just be a tropical thing for me, because that's the first tropical place I went to where life is quite abundant and healthy, typically, especially island life. So
yeah, it's a drastic contrast and like a culture shock, and then the temperature and all that, the weather.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think your gratitude towards being there elevates it to that heaven status, because you're going into it with like an extra level of gratitude. The first thing you did was want to be thankful, right? So that will elevate your experience as well. So
yeah,
it goes with you, and it goes with Thailand, I think.
Yeah, that's why I can't make any objective statements too much. I can tell you what the weather is, etc., and
yeah,
you know, the religion that's practiced there on the grand scale, and etc., etc. But you have to be thankful. But it was almost, you know, I wasn't going in as a person who expressed gratitude often. I do quite a bit now. But after being, like, it's just you know, what else do I think to myself after going in this water and feeling this place and the vibe of it? I had no choice. I had to express thanks.
One thing I wanted to ask was about your trip to Banchamek Gym, is it?
Banchamek?
Banchamek. So that's where Bulka trains, or does he own the gym? Does he own it?
Yeah, that's his gym.
Bulka owns.
He had a gym in Bangkok he ran for a long time, and then he ended up, I think that one's still going. I don't know if he shut it down or not. But he ended up opening up one in the far north, I think closer to where he grew up. So I had to start in Chiang Mai and take a moped out of the city north. It took about like 2-3 hours to get there. It was just roads, and then eventually you turn off onto a dirt road. And it's just a small, you know, tiny little village. They have their temple, etc. But nobody there really speaks English. You have to follow this dirt road and eventually get to another one. You go back and you find his gym. It's very like country, secluded.
You liked watching his fights, and then you thought, I want to go there because of that?
Yeah, he's one of my favorite stylists for sure. I've been studying Muay Thai quite a bit, watching fights, watching interviews with legends and whatnot. So I was well aware of who he was and a lot of his fights. Watched almost all of them that are available on YouTube.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really I like his style and his energy, how he fights. How it's very true to like an aggressive fighter, like you'd watch a tiger fight or something like that.
It's like Mike Tyson again, almost like.
Yeah, he's one of those peak level type. They express that fighting spirit very well, and they're technically amazing. And you can see from their training that they're incredibly disciplined and they endure. So yeah, he's one of my favorite fighters. When I showed up, I just showed up. I hadn't called them prior. I was just going to show up for, you know, a session.
Okay.
Whatever, and I saw him there chilling out on the patio there.
Just relaxing.
Like, yeah, and the first impression I got is, wow, that's a god. That's a different level of human being.
Yeah.
Type.
Wow.
You know, that's like kind of the starstruck thing, but it wasn't even that. It was more so like.
But from a martial artist too.
Deep respect I felt. Like, should I even talk to this? You know.
Like humbling, kind of.
No, not even humbling, just sort of like an awe of, wow, that's a powerful person.
All respect
Yeah.
to Buakaw.
So I saw him there, and I ended up doing another session on another day, and he stopped by the gym and was watching people. I didn't train with him or anything, but he was watching people, and he...
In the vicinity.
Yeah, and he at one point, he told me I was doing well in the pads, and I was like...
He gave you that affirmation there.
Recognition.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
To get a compliment from somebody that you respect that much must be life-affirming, I would say.
Well, definitely having trained 4 or 5 years straight without a break lasting more than 2 weeks, and usually training 3 to 4 times at least a week, and watching fights in my spare time, and all this for 3 to 4 years, and seeing how in that time at my age, like I started when I was 24, 25, put 4 or 5 years into it, and seeing that I had arrived in Thailand and was at the gym run by one of the greatest fighters in striking, and even just meeting the guy briefly, that was very...
Is it true that he became a monk for some time?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, not just Thailand, but a lot of people do dedicate a week or more or less to becoming a monk. Our buddy Luke there...
In Thailand,
Our buddy Luke has roots in Laos, and they study their own type of Buddhism, and he's done that various times. I think a lot of people do that.
Shout out to Luke. Yeah, with Buakaw, I'm saying it... Buakaw? Buakaw. From my experience, obviously I haven't met him, but going from a teenager who saw Ong Bak and just loving that movie so much to the point where I was watching it every day and trying to imitate the moves, and I mean, probably from a superficial level, but I think it spoke to me in a way that kind of intrigued me at least. And then once I started training, actually watching people fight on the internet and stuff and seeing him, it was kind of like, oh, there's an actual representative of Muay Thai who competes in a more modern organization and is very much a dominant force in there. And he had that energy, and if he got hit, he'd kind of like just like go Hulk mode, I guess, almost in a sense. But it was cool to think that you did the thing that you would imagine yourself doing in a movie, almost in a sense, like going on this martial arts journey, seeing where life will take you, deciding I'm going to go to that spot, and then getting that compliment and things. It's what keeps me interested in the martial arts journey, because it creates a path to your life that seems almost like you can see where it's going, and it's meant to be this thing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to feel fulfilled and satisfied in their life.
100%.
A lot of people don't have that, and they're always searching for it.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of like people's problems just come from not feeling fulfilled in their day to day,
It's the existential
doing what their soul really is craving,
like
right?
following their heart or their passion. Or
and that's just something I was introverted when I was young and thought a lot to myself and considered things and didn't give myself a lot to other people, and partially I think that is kind of me wanting to protect whatever I knew to be very true to myself, and I guess it's just also who I am. But I've always wanted to follow my soul. What I know, I've spent a lot of time in deep reflection on my own, so I know what it is to talk to myself and to hear myself.
Right.
So it's hard for me not to be true to that. I can't not be true to that.
You think in many ways people are compromising too much with that aspect of life? With
the way the world is? And accepting that...
Not generally, maybe, but just... Like you said, you had that. I understand that because I have that same thing where I always feel compelled to follow that voice or whatever. But not everyone seems to be on that wavelength, I guess, sometimes.
Or we just have more obstacles to face in listening to that than the average person. More hindrances. It could go either way, right? I'm not to like weigh things out with other people and whatnot. I also feel like I'm a creative individual and this and that, and I have to fulfill certain obligations I have in my own mind about how I feel like my life needs to be guided and whatnot. So all I'm saying is most of my life, through a lot of what I've done, I've just tried to follow my intuition, what my soul's telling me. And that's what it was telling me at the time, was to start training to fight. It didn't seem like much of a choice. It just felt like the right thing, compelling me to do it. And so I did it. And I remember telling you, like, I didn't feel like I was becoming really disciplined, even though I'm sure I was. It was more so, it wasn't like, oh no, I have to wake up for this time to train. It was purely my desire to do it. No one else had any hand in it at all. If anything, other people were likely against it or not supporting it or saying, like, you don't seem like a fighter or whatever. So I was just staying true to what I wanted.
Do you think that's their insecurity that's trying to hold you
I don't
back?
know.
You don't want to put a... Yeah, I don't expect people to...
That's a whole nother issue.
Speak on those things. It's just...
That's a whole nother...
I'm just saying that could be why people...
People judge other people because they're insecure. That's a fact.
Yeah, but not even just to judge someone, then to turn around and say you shouldn't do that or you don't look like this or whatever. Like, it's their own reflection. It's their own shadow or whatever.
Sure. Well, all I know is it didn't resonate with where I was at and who I am. So, like...
But it became apparent.
I don't even have a second thought about those things. All I'm saying is, like, no one else was supporting this, really. It was just I was compelled to do it.
Yeah.
And so I kept putting the time in because it just felt normal. It felt right. It felt like I was fulfilling something that was already written.
I'm sure other people were supporting you, but maybe it was just not such a factor in that as well.
Nobody else's opinion really mattered in that regard.
Yeah.
I felt like I was fulfilling something that was already written. Like, I was doing what I was meant to do.
Destiny.
Yeah, and I don't know if it relates, but I've followed zodiacs and whatnot, known since I was a kid I was a Taurus and a sun sign. And then around when I was deciding to start fighting or training kickboxing, I found the sidereal zodiac, and it's a more ancient Indian zodiac, I believe, that follows the moon. And so it doesn't get manipulated by the precession of the equinoxes. It stays, because now 2,000 years after they created the tropical zodiac, it's slightly off.
Gets further by...
Yeah, and so everyone's sign isn't necessarily their actual sign, but the sidereal is supposed to be accurate.
Okay.
And in that, I found out I was an Aries. The god of war, loves fighting, hard-headed, stubborn. It said all these things to me that made sense.
Made more sense than the previous Taurus one?
Yeah, and that aligning with starting to train kickboxing, it all just felt like, this is something I've been needing. This is like an energy I've needed to tap into for my own health.
It's good when the universe is kind of helping you on your path instead of...
It always is.
Yeah, for sure. But when you feel that more acutely, I guess.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to recognize it and even assess it and say, like, the universe helped me or whatever. It was more just, these things just happen and they become a part of your life. Even if it seems like the universe is working against you, or things aren't going well or whatever, it's still a part of the process and it's still doing the same thing. Because although I experienced great joy and satisfaction and fulfillment doing certain things, there's, if not the same amount, more pain and tough times I've gone through. But that was all necessary to find the right way as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's not finding a big difference in either. It's just flowing with things and being content with it no matter what's there. And if you can accept and flow with things, good or bad, I think it just makes the opportunities for good things to happen more easily accessible. Because you accept whatever you get.
Sure.
I want to see you go to Thailand.
Yeah.
I want to see you last a week in their training regimens. Because it's wild. You know, they wake up like early morning, run like a few kilometers at least, start training, you know, pads, sparring, clinching, bag work, all the warm-ups and the cool-downs, you know, like lifting a weight with your teeth 100 times, 100 pull-ups, like this stuff to end the session. Yeah. And that's the morning session. And then the evening is the same thing. You're doing the run, you're doing the whole thing. 6 days a week, that's traditionally what they do. Once you step into their climate, it's hotter than here. Yeah. And step into that vibe and the skill level, to like spar with guys who are much smaller and see them just have no issue
Yeah.
with what you're trying to throw at them, and just get demolished.
But it's good for you to get your ass kicked.
Yeah, well, it's not
basically.
getting your ass kicked. It's just learning
Yeah, but you learn
and pushing
by,
yourself to your limits.
Yeah,
Pushing your limits.
for sure.
Yeah.
There's a big motivation for me to just like give myself to that, so that I'm not even able to make the decision at that point. Like, if I've spent all the time and money planning this thing to go to Thailand and do it, once you're in that, you're not gonna not give it your all in that sense.
Yeah, and it's a vicious thing, but at the same time, Thai people generally seem to be very lovely people, and it's all love, and Muay Thai is rooted in family.
Yeah, if it
And
wasn't
so
like that, I'd have no
the
interest.
heart is strong with Muay Thai.
Yeah.
There's
If I didn't
there's
feel
no
like-
ego guys. There's no
Yeah.
big ego guys or whatever. It's like it's close to the heart and roots.
It's less egotistical than maybe the UFC or something like that, for sure.
Well, I mean, UFC is not a martial art; it's an organization
Yeah,
that
I know.
promotes fights.
But it doesn't promote that side.
If you're a kid looking to indulge in an aspect of fighting, you'll find more fulfillment
Yeah,
following
Profound.
Muay Thai.
that
than-
was the word. Well, thanks for taking the time to go down memory lane and all that. Hopefully, we can link up in Thailand though and train.
Yeah,
Be legendary.
yeah, man. I gotta go back 100%. 100%.
Cool, man.
Sponsor
to the
me.
universe,
Sponsor me. I need to go back to Thailand. Somebody.
bro.
Yeah.
Till then, stay zen. Namaste.
Cup
stay
on
ready.
top.
Okay, that appears to be all we have time for on today's episode. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as whichever platform you listen to your podcasts on. And you can even follow us on Instagram too. Radiant_light_podcast. And you can always reach out to us at radiantlightpodcast1, that's the number 1, at gmail.com. So until next time, good night, God bless, and Namaste.